All right, welcome to Engine House Training. We're going to talk about multi-story, large extended hose line deployment. For this example, we're going to use a dormitory at a very old college. As you can see from this picture, it's a 4-story building, and you can see it's got air conditioners hanging out of it, and there's a stairwell over here to the right that you can see, and there's a stairwell, and you'll see in the next photo off to the left, and those are the only two egresses and accesses. And what we'll talk about is the length of the corridors, special hazards, firefighting capabilities in these types of buildings. Here's the other side. This is still the same center door that we saw in the prior picture. The stairwell for this end is down here, and off to the left of that is a roadway coming in, and that's the primary access to this entire campus. There's only one road coming in and coming out. You can see some of the older building features. Obviously, it's a brick building. This is a Type 3 building with a basement. We can see the windows along the bottom. It's a short basement, and there's several tunnels that lead off. This way is a boiler room, and back behind the building is an old convent that goes to, and it also goes to basically every building on the campus via tunnels. In those tunnels, the kids like to sneak away down there and do whatever kids do, but there are combustible items. They've got a lot of storage in those areas. They're not very well lit. There's not any natural light once you get into the tunnels, and some of them have offshoots that go into older rooms, different types of things. The main part of this campus was built in the 1800s, not this particular building, but portions of the campus are that old, so that's something we're dealing with. You can also see some of the older building features, the transoms that they've got above the windows on the exterior. The same holds true for the inside on some rooms, not all. They've remodeled some of those rooms, but not all of them. So that's something we're going to talk about with fire extension, auto exposure, and ventilation issues. This is a view from one end of one of the corridors. This is the main floor. In this particular building, this main floor is not occupied by students, but it does give a representation on how long that corridor is. The upstairs corridors have actually more rooms in them. There's more doors than what you see in this particular corridor. However, each corridor from stairwell to stairwell on each end is about 225 feet, and our closest access to those exits is going to be on the stairway that we saw on the left in the prior picture, and that's about a 35 to 40 foot stretch from the truck to the stairwell. So you know you're going to have a lengthy hose line stretch when we get to this building, and we're going to have to really weigh our options as to which one we're going to access and how much hose we're going to need, and also where we're going to deploy resources, initially our water supply, and if there's rescues that are going to need to be made. This particular building doesn't have a lot of access for aerial or bucket operations. There's just not anywhere to park, and in the yard, all those tunnels, so we really can't place units in the yard, even though it can be firm ground. We're worried about the weight of those apparatus caving in the tunnels, so we're limited with our accessibility with ladder trucks or aerial devices. One thing we need to keep track of is approximately how many rooms are on each floor and how many students are in each room. In some cases in this building, it's a dormitory, there's 2 to 3 students per room, and there's a couple dozen rooms per floor. This is an example. This is both stairwells have the same design. These stairs are open from top to bottom. They're inside the stairwell themselves. There's no separations from floor to floor. There are no standpipes in this building, and it's not sprinkled. These stairwells also are not pressurized, and you can see in the picture here that we've got windows, which can create some ventilation problems and smoke spread problems, especially if the wind's coming from that direction or from the opposite direction. There are windows at each landing inside this stairwell, and like I said, there's one on the left side of the building, one on the right side of the building, separated by about a 225-foot corridor. Another challenge we're going to have is, depending on which one we operate in, or perhaps both, we're going to have problems accessing hopefully due to egress of occupants. We have to keep that in mind. So finally, I want to give you a little scenario, and I know it's pretty primitive, my drawing, but it's the best I can do with what I have. at this point, take a look at the building. We know what's over here on the left, and we know that that is another stairwell. There is access here to the front. The access on the left side is much closer. We can pull right up, like I said, about 30-40 feet from the stairwell. You can see we've got a little bit further to go to this one, where the access is on the inside, where those arches are over there. But this is what you've got when you pull up. What do you see? What are going to be your resources? What's going to be your tactics? Where are you going to place your first line? Search and rescue. Again, we can't put apparatus here because we've got all those tunnels. We'll probably crush the tunnels. Same on the back side. The elevation's the same on the rear. So just kind of share this with your crew, discuss things, add and delete what you don't like or what you do like. I know I haven't covered everything, but it's a good place to start, especially in talking about tactics like this. Water supply is going to be an issue. Minimum staffing, we're a suburban department that runs typically 3 on a truck. That includes our operator. So depending on what your jurisdiction runs, how you're deployed, and what resources you have available to you, what are your priorities? For this particular scenario, we do have some evacuation in place, but let's call it late night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, where we've got reports of victims still trapped on those upper floors. The origin of the fire is on the 3rd floor, but obviously we're going to have to operate and search the floor above. So how are we going to make access? How are we going to get people down if they're in windows? And what are your tactics? Share them with us. Share them with your crew. Discuss, train, and hopefully we'll see some of you at FDIC next week. Take care and train hard.